Hey, what's up? How
Hello.
goes it? It is amazing time now. We are in the last of the movie wrap-ups for Godzilla. Before we finish off into the amazing final thing that we did this whole thing for, and that's the Godzilla movie. I'm Gonzo Mike, and that's Gonzo Tim.
Gonzo Tim. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this. I can't breathe in this thing. I'm going unmasked. I'm coming out.
Boom, 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 boom.
Wait a minute. I can't quite get this mask off. Let me just pull a little bit more. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Wow, that was a double drum.
It was a dramatic moment. So.
Well, I guess it is the 10th episode. It's the last 4 movies of the series before the one in the theater, which will have an extra special epidose. And we'll probably do something where it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot to talk about coming up. So I still have my Monster Energy drink. Oh man, I clipped my toenails and my fingernails. So I got that guy. And because of this special occasion, with it being not only double digits, but also the last of the movies, I got a little bit of vodka.
Oh, yeah. I almost went that way myself, but I need to rehydrate after wearing this mask for like 10
Yeah, it can take a lot out of a person.
Yeah, because basically I wear this mask 24/7, and so I can finally take it off.
Is it like, not to switch movie universes, we'll do it one brief second, but in the wake of being out of movie series, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I noticed Star Wars Clone Wars was on Netflix, all 6 seasons, so I started watching that.
I just started watching that myself last night.
Well, we probably won't do a special Epidose series on that.
No, but that series is actually pretty good. So.
But the reason I went there is that I used to read a lot of the Star Wars books, and then I stopped because I realized it just didn't make sense. And I'm glad I stopped too, because that was way too much time invested where I could, invested watching Godzilla movies. But a lot of the times, it's a classic trope, because that's what we point out here, Gonzo guys, is a lot of these books will inevitably spend, especially if stormtroopers are involved, we'll spend about a couple pages describing how stinky and smelly the stormtrooper helmets are. And yeah, after about 1 or 2, you kind of get the point. And but some author, they always got to describe smells like human sweat and a little bit of fecal matter, and it's like the same thing whenever somebody puts on a stormtrooper helmet.
It was just the one guy who kept crapping in his helmet, though.
Yeah, damn it, Bobby.
Damn it, Lieutenant Cody, quit doing that.
Lieutenant Cody. Commander Cody.
Commander Cody. Execute Order 66.
That was I think that was a callback to the Commander Cody serials back in the day. Anyway, all right, enough. Clone Wars corner is over. Enough of that. So we have the last 4 movies. It is Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, Godzilla Tokyo SOS, and then Godzilla Final Wars. We got 4 movies, and it's going to be a ride.
Is Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Attack, is that the longest title in the catalog?
That's a good question.
The other one was
Final Monsters. Yeah, I think that's the longest one.
I think so. So that's GMK. GMK.
But we are still in the Millennium series, which means that the only single point of continuity between most of these is the 1954 original Godzilla movie, and that's what we find ourselves with this thing, where it starts out with there's some attack on New York City, a new, not the G-Force or the Super Gs or whatever, it's Japanese Self-Defense Force, they decided to do something about Godzilla, and they start out the movie in one of the ways with a nuclear sub missing.
First place they go.
What?
It's always the first place they go is Godzilla's eating something radioactive, like a sub.
Yeah, and of course, like some television crew or something like looks around, and it's some guy on the ship blames Godzilla, of course.
Oh, he's a sea captain. Now, was this the one that started with that Godzilla had attacked every like 10 years? And they kept showing the various, or is that the next one? I think that was the next one.
That might be the next one.
I think that was Godzilla against Mechagodzilla 2002.
Yeah.
There's one of them, like a whole thing where like he attacked in 54, and then again in 60, and then again in the 70s, and then again in the 80s. And they keep rebuilding, and they. I think that was a different one. I don't remember.
Was that the one with the plasma? Was that the one we saw last week?
Oh, that was last week. I'm sorry. There's just so many scrolling numbers in these movies anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? So like because of the investigative lady does something, they find an old tome or a book or something, and it's called like the Guardian Monsters or something.
Ah, yes, the Guardian Monsters, and it's kind of is it by a mountain? Is Mount Fuji that they're by where all the little statues are set up?
Probably.
I think it's a different place. I think it's Mountain whatever. Guardian Monster Mountain. So.
Yeah, and they send a ship out there to investigate, and they get a picture of like the glowing fins of Godzilla swimming away.
And they're like, oh shit, it's Godzilla.
And at the same time, there's some shitty ass teenagers. God, those kids. They tried really hard to make these kids into a-holes when they're like.
They're really well funded bike gang.
Yeah, I know. It's like, hey, let's get rid of this yapping puppy by putting it in a box with a rock and dunk it out in the middle of the lake.
I was like, oh my god, they're not really gonna drown that puppy, are they?
They're like, the screenwriters didn't waste any time. They're like,
how can we make these kids unlikable? Kill a puppy.
What's the easiest way that we can really hate these kids?
And I know that for a fact that teenage girls love it when boys drown puppies in boxes.
Yeah. So while they're doing that, Mothra shows up out of the lake because Mothra.
And kills them.
Yeah. It's insect. It's insect Mothra.
It's insect Mothra, or larva Mothra, and it kills the wayward teenagers, and the dog gets away.
Of course, the dog always gets away. We'll talk about that
later.
Yeah. Oh, and in the meantime, like, there's some guy driving a delivery truck and like tries to drive in a tunnel, and then he sees this giant mouth thing like dig through the tunnel.
That
was Baragon.
Baragon, there we go. I was gonna say Garrett.
Yeah, he's easily forgettable because he does not get top billing in this movie. He was actually in this movie.
He was, but they wasted him pretty quick.
Jobbed out to Godzilla is what would happen.
Like melted him like instantly.
He was like Al Snow to Godzilla's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Baragon's like, I'm in GMK too. How come it's not GMBK?
Come on. My writer said I needed to get brown M&M people. Okay.
Better writer.
So that happens, and they start to figure out something's going on. Is that right?
They know Godzilla's coming, but they also know these other things are popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out how they're gonna fight Godzilla. Meanwhile, people keep knocking over these freaking statues.
And then there's this really old, goofy guy that like is predicting all this crazy stuff.
Who's able to appear in different places. He's kind of got teleportability. And every time these statues get like knocked over, it triggers one of the monsters to wake up. So like the teenagers try to drown the puppy with the mystic statue, and that's why Mothra comes out and kills him. And then somebody else knocks over another one, and that wakes up Baragon. And then somebody kind of breaks one, and you just get hinted at that King Ghidorah is going to wake up, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, he's the big tease for the movie. So this investigative journalist lady like runs around and finds stuff. The kids die, and finally we get into this whole setup where we just talked about Godzilla and Baragon meet, and Godzilla creamed him.
Pretty quick beat. And it should be noted, Godzilla is really kind of like a bad guy in this for the most part.
Yeah, there needs to be like a little signal that bleeps like at the beginning of the movie, or at least like a sticker you could put on the box.
This is bad guy Godzilla or good guy Godzilla.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the whole point of this series. We'll come to find out throughout the whole life of this, is that Godzilla really is just a nature force of the nature, and
he's bad.
Where you get sunshine and happy snowflakes on your face that you can catch with your tongue. You can also get hails in the balls and tornadoes lifting your ass 50 miles in the air and then impaling you on some fence.
Or you can, in a quiet moment, sharing a look with a giant lizard, or he will melt you to death with his radioactive breath.
Yes. Don't feed him the extra hot sauce. That's all we're trying to say.
Don't stand by like a missile.
Or the toilet after he gets done with it.
Flush.
Pre-onk dunk.
But so he wipes out Baragon. They're kind of freaking out because they're like, "Oh, Godzilla's coming," and he's kind of like extra pissed off Godzilla. That's more accurate. And so he's cooking, and Mothra's kicking around. People don't know what to do with Mothra, so they have people. The twins show up in this one, don't they?
I think so for a little bit. I know Mothra went cocoon on the lake and then popped out as the flying version.
Yeah, it become butterfly Mothra pretty quick, or Mothra pretty quick.
But they also the Japanese Self-Defense Force sends out ships that shoot missiles at it and it does nothing. Again.
Yeah. Shocking. They really should stop shooting. They always roll out the tanks and planes and they do nothing. Just whatever your like last resort weapon is, start there, because that's usually what happens. It depends on the continuity of the Godzilla movie, I guess, but there's a long continuity there for a while. They really should just skip the gun. But yeah, they have the investigative reporter. She works for like a tabloid news station, so nobody takes her seriously. And her dad's a general in this. Am I correct?
Yeah, because she gets a ride home from a guy, and her dad's all like, "What's going on?" And then next morning, she's like, "It's my fault, ha 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 ha."
Like, no,
I was hard on the young gentleman.
And he's a general that has never seen the action because he was in it after Godzilla came the first time, and they've never had to use their defense force yet.
Yeah, it's typical fare for the human story. Nothing really that exciting.
Yada yada. Dad and daughter don't quite see eye to eye, but they really care about each other. Yada yada yada.
Yada yada yada. They sleep with each other.
Reporter wants to be bigger than she is, so she's going to go after. She believes the stories, but nobody believes her. And guardian monsters. The military wants to kill them all, but she says they're good.
She ends up auditioning for the school board to get accepted into college, while also moonlighting as a cabaret-like dancer to make ends meet. And she dances, and at the very end, she grabs a string and a bucket of water washes all over her. Wait a minute, that's Flashdance!
I was like, oh boy, I really missed this section in there somewhere. As far as I know, she's just a reporter.
I wonder what an Asian Flashdance would be like.
She was a dancer for money.
That's a great tagline. She was a dancer for money.
Private.
Yeah, well, so she's all doing that. That would have made the human story more interesting. Ooh, it's a Godzilla movie. What can you ask for? It's not Casablanca.
No. So there's that general. I think the twins show up and they kind of convince people that they are guardian monsters.
Yeah, it's quite the cameo. I mean, I really don't even remember them. So
they just basically say you need to like trust us on this front. And is that the one where he signals Mothra? No, I think that's the next one.
So, well, I don't know if Mothra's in the next one, but I do know that the old guy somehow kicks over a stone onto the ice that had the frozen Ghidorah.
That's right. That's all you gotta do to unleash Ghidorah.
And apparently he wasn't like super done or like Ghidorah's size. So he flies into battle right when like Mothra shows up to face Godzilla, and it's a throwdown. It's the GMK.
Except for Mothra and King Ghidorah being much smaller than Godzilla in this one. Usually King Ghidorah is much larger than Godzilla.
Yeah, so of course Godzilla starts to make quick work of these two.
He's whomping them pretty good. Good fight, different kind of fight because they're not quite the same size. And Godzilla's a little more, I don't know, aggressive? I don't know how to describe it.
He's a little more cranky.
Yeah, he's in a pissy mood in this one. He's in a pissy mood for most of the Millennial series, but
the lead lady and the guy that was like with her earlier are out on the bridge because they got to film it and they're staying close and whatever. And like one of the guys has like a chipped piece of the stone shrine thing, and was in his pocket. And of course, like Japanese self-defense force, blah blah, missile hits the bridge. It was aimed for Ghidorah, whatever. It was aimed for Godzilla, hit Ghidorah, whatever. And humans in peril. So the lady's hanging on the bridge, and the guy's like reaching down to pull her up, and like Ghidorah is knocked out in the water, and the piece of stone falls out and lands in the water and drops down right on one of the middle heads of Ghidorah, and then it's like it
recharges them.
It's like the last piece to give him like the full Ghidorah.
His full potential.
Yeah, so he's all like hulking up, and he came out and turned the corner pretty much.
And puts the hurt on Godzilla a little bit. And what's the dad doing? He's driving a sub, because he's got to shoot Godzilla with something. There's like a burrowing missile they use. It like latches on and it doesn't go through Godzilla's outer skin because he's just too thick. But they have these bombs they can use on him, but they need to be able to like basically get it inside him. And so I think he gets wounded, and they're trying to shoot him into his wounds.
Yeah,
his chest pretty good, I think.
Yeah, they showed this missile in the beginning, and it's just basically a glorified drill with little drills on it. But it hit him right in the wound, and then it kind of expanded out, and then I think it like blew up or something. Or no, it drilled in or something like that.
Drilled in, but it wasn't enough to get him, and so the dad's down there in this little sub, and he's got a special torpedo, and he basically flies down Godzilla's gullet while he's in the bottom of the ocean.
He somehow gets into the body and he exits it right before the monster. Because Godzilla was going to radio blast somebody, but because of the wound, he's radio blasting himself.
And it shoots out like he has a hole in his shoulder, and so the radio blast keeps shooting out the back of him.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he just starts cooking himself. And
he melts, and that's it.
He melts, and that's it. And the dad comes up in the sub, and the girl survives. And
everything melted except what?
A beating heart on the bottom of the ocean floor.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Which is, I guess, the assumption is he can regenerate from any piece that's left.
He's kind of like Wolverine in that respect.
Or I felt like it was a Friday the 13th thing. Like, you left Jason's head in the bottom of Crystal Lake, and
it wasn't enough. You needed to burn everything.
You got to burn his whole body down, and if you leave one piece, he's going to grow back. And that's the GMK.
Yeah. So, it was an interesting take. I think, if anything, it introduced a new dynamic of Ghidorah and Mothra fighting together, which is interesting.
Well, having Ghidorah be a good guy, which is
also interesting.
Which is also it's a twist on the classic. So if you were a longtime Godzilla fan, that would throw you off a little bit.
Yeah.
So to fight Godzilla before, but it was kind of,
I think, if anything, it's a good entry into the series that at least showed a couple new creative ways of the monsters fighting, even though they're all kind of recognizable from
They
past.
change size and kind of the dynamic of the fight. So
Yeah. So
Godzilla in this one, so it's kind of a downer.
no, and Baragon didn't get top billing, and I feel kind of
Baragon got buried.
buried,
Literally and figuratively. So.
buried, comma gone.
Baragon. I'm getting buried. Nine.
Snarf. So that brings us to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Let's do this.
So this one starts out again retconning everything. 45 years in 1999, 45 years after Godzilla's first attack.
Yes.
He's trashing the city again, and some lady with their captains out there. They somehow, some military genius decided that having a bunch of people on foot running around lobbing missiles at Godzilla would somehow like either distract or destroy it. So that's what we're left with at the beginning of this movie.
Soldiers trying to take out Godzilla.
Yeah. So the lady is as stubborn as hell. And she just wouldn't give up, and the guy's like, finally, Godzilla's coming, move, move, move. She's like, no, I got one more shot, and then Godzilla does some stuff, knocks some rubble around, and of course it falls on the guy, and the lady survives, and now she's got a grudge to hold like 10 years later.
Her commanding officer pushes her out of the way and gets crushed by rubble, and hates Godzilla with a passion. And she carries her commander's dog tags with her, and she's kind of a hot.
And the Mazers are all like, now Godzilla's immune to them, so all their Mazer stuff doesn't work anymore, and they're just like, whatever, military kaput.
Yeah, those Mazers no black hole gun, so it's still by far my favorite weapon. But yeah, so they got the Mazers, don't work. They're kind of at like, what the hell are we gonna do?
4 years later.
4 years later, they find the 1954 Godzilla's bones.
Mm-hmm.
And they are like, we can use that to build
a robot around it.
a robot around it. Instead of you working on normal like binary code, it's going to work on DNA as a computer language.
Because science.
Science, which is not entirely. I mean, it's coded, so I guess. Yeah, I'll allow it.
Yeah, the judges will allow that.
I'll allow it. So it's going to run on DNA.
We'll take goofy monster names for 500, Alex.
What is the skeleton that runs on DNA?
That would be Kiryu. Kiryu. It's not Mechagodzilla. It's Kiryu or whatever. I don't even know.
Yeah. Well, Mecha G. They also call him Mecha G.
That's a lot. That's a lot more hip. I think the kids would like that more than Kiryu.
But Kiru is like they call him, like he's the project name is Kiru, Project Kiru. It's Mechagodzilla. We're not going to dance around that. It's a giant robot that looks like Godzilla.
This is like the third iteration of Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, and different backstory this time. He literally has Godzilla's bones in him.
Yeah. That's the difference. Yeah, so they build it, and then there's a couple of different things. There's an absolute zero weapon in the chest of.
That's a pretty badass weapon too.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like
Black hole.
It's like the ion cannon from Clone Wars. Wow, seriously, no Star Wars here.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Misa thinks so too.
Yeah, don't reference that ever again.
All right, so
they have this new gun that's built into his chest. The Sub-Zero gun, and basically, it kind of like does what liquid nitrogen does, where you can take like a piece of fruit and then it freezes it so much you can smash it to dust.
Yeah, and they're showing off all this really cool stuff, and of course, But
he only has like a flight time of like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then he has to get up. So.
Like in the middle of all this, guess who shows up? Godzilla.
Yeah, and is he ready? Well, I don't know if he's ready yet, but he probably is. And so, of course, they get him out, and he has like a 2-hour flight time, but they can refuel him while he's out on the, like a big plane when you fly up to a tanker plane. So, okay, I'll allow it.
So it gets there, and then like Russell
take off sequence, Except this one doesn't take off. They have planes hook him up and drag him out to wherever he's got to be.
I thought that was kind of cool. Although rockets did show up later. I like the idea of having the case
fly later. So it's like, well, I guess maybe you don't want to use all your gas. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very fuel efficient. That's all. So.
Yeah. So Godzilla roars. Kira hears this, and the bones get all crazy.
Because the bones contain the souls of all the people who died in World War II.
The judges?
Okay. I'll allow it.
It's allowed. All right. Cool.
It's allowed. So the boat, not only is it Godzilla, but Godzilla is full of rage because he contains the souls of all these dead soldiers.
Science. So Kiro...
Science, whatever.
Kiro flips his shit and just runs rampant over the city.
Starts out Godzilla. He just starts firing every gun he's got. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's almost like it was like the blue screen of death for monsters.
It just missiles fly out of every spot on Mechagodzilla.
Blue screen of death would be an awesome monster name.
It's just a big blue square coming across Tokyo.
Actually, if I did another Mechagodzilla movie, that'd be its weapon. Its mega weapon would be the blue screen of death.
Would it be like the thing they send people, the Phantom Zone in Superman?
Something like that.
You trap him in a big, flat, two-dimensional thing and throw him into space.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of like the chest opens up and shoots it out, and it looks like a little like net. And then it like entangles the monster, and then you got the two-dimensional thing, and then it's called the blue screen of death.
Ah, fatal error.
Exactly. Fatal error. Finish him. So
it was going to kill Godzilla, but he pushed Control-Alt-Delete too quick.
So I don't even remember the human story in this. What was the human story in this? Besides the lady, was there anything else?
No, she just wanted her vengeance. There was a goofy... which one was the mechanic, where the mechanic was a goofball?
Goofball? Then that might be the next one.
That's the next one. I got a little confused on these two, because these actually have continuity between them, so they're kind of the same world. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what her story. She wanted to get revenge. She was this is the one where she's the pilot and nobody likes her because she had her commanding officer die.
Yeah.
She's a Kurd. And so she won't wear the hat and wear the hat of the team. They have a little Godzilla hat, which is kind of cool. She won't wear the hat until she earns her stripes, and she's trying to fire the Sub-Zero weapon, but Kiru goes nuts. And they finally shut it down. They have to wait for it to run out of gas, which is awesome. They're like, well, it's still got an hour left.
I like the fact that Kiru grabs Godzilla by the tail and spins Godzilla around and throws Godzilla.
Now, this is the one with the goofy computer programmer guy.
Oh, yeah, I jumped ahead. What the hell?
Yeah, it's like he figured out how to do the DNA computing stuff. And he was assured them that it would work. And he has a daughter who's talks to a plant that responds to her, and his
she was in
the backstory. Her mother and her would-be sister died in childbirth, so the baby and the mom died, and so the girl had a weird outlook on life and death, but then she kind of pals up with the angry female pilot, and they both kind of soften each other, and the guy just keeps hitting on this female pilot. And she's not going for it at all. And he keeps Godzilla, I'll buy you dinner.
I think the little girl was also the first one that's like, well, maybe it has a right to live since the bones are in it and stuff like that.
Because if all things are living have a right to live, then you should let Kiru just be Kiru because it's alive. And you shouldn't be killing anything. And but
Wow.
the
Ro versus Kiru, apparently.
Kiru, and then there's a standing dinner bet that like he's like, well, I'm so sure it's going to work. I'm going to bet you dinner. So when you destroy Godzilla, I'll take you to dinner. She's like, okay, whatever. You know. And then he's like, yes, and he like high fives his daughter. So that's your human story. So
Yeah,
and
it
she's
wasn't a typical story. It was weird, that's for sure.
it was odd, but the love interest, as much as they have in these, is the angry female pilot and the goofy DNA computer programmer guy.
Yeah.
And he has to retool like his program and try to figure out a way that yell will not trigger Kiru to go.
No, I'm getting my movies mixed up. Was that the one with the computer program that was like an anime girl? Or was that something else?
That's a different. That was shit. Was that movie?
Oh, it was the one where the guy.
That was the black hole gun in space with the little anime the nurse that would fix the program.
Yeah.
He flew through cyberspace and like used medical equipment on it, because that's how technology works.
Don't really do bleed together.
That's how technology works, by the way.
Yeah.
It's all grid.
So where are we at? Like.
So all the personal shit happens. Blah blah blah. Godzilla. Mechagodzilla goes ape shit. It runs out of gas. They bring it back in. It's all beat up. They reprogram it, thinking it will not take over the. It won't go ape shit again. They reload the Sub-Zero gun, and they get that's all ready to go. And so they go out and they're gonna peg Godzilla with the Sub-Zero gun. And this time it works, and it doesn't hit him though. It hits a bunch of buildings and destroys them.
That was cool. The way seeing that Absolute Zero fly through across the buildings,
and they just all turn up,
freeze, and then just like crumble. That was cool. That was pretty cool.
And then Godzilla's kind of getting the upper hand again, but then Mechagodzilla kind of stumbles and falls, and they fire.
And that's the tailspin. That's where it was like. Phew.
There we go. That's where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and then.
And he's pitching regular Godzilla out to sea. Is that right?
Something like that.
He pitches him really far, then he grabs him in the air, and
well, no, the Kira was disabled, and it had to be taken over for manual control.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And so the lady gets in there and proceeds to do it analog style.
She flies it old school. Mm-hmm. And she grabs Godzilla, and they end up in the ocean, flying out towards sea, getting away from land. And they get into the water, and they fire the gun after they go in the water. And it makes a big old, like, H-bomb.
Crystal H-bomb. Like, if I wanted to get a commemorative Hiroshima flower vase, it would look something like what was produced in this movie.
And then it crumbles to dust or water again.
And guess who's left standing?
And Godzilla pops right back up. Roar.
He's like, hey, no sweat, hey, no respect here, no respect, hey. Hey, what I'm talking about here.
Almost immediate, like everything's frozen, and it's like the first thing up is like, I'm back.
Yeah, and it conjures the ghost of Rodney Dangerfield. Like, oh, no respect, no respect.
Weird
hey, I'm only on a couple of towns here. I'm not like in the city. Hey, who? Hey, you're beautiful.
The part was he came out with a jacket and tie on, which was something I was not expecting.
Yes. I was like, oh, I'm ready for another cheesy 80s comedy movie.
And
hey, everybody, let's take a shower. All right. That's enough of that. So
he's back.
Didn't they basically call it a tie then? It was like, oh, well, I guess you can buy me dinner still, even though Godzilla's alive.
Enough to run Godzilla off. He's like, okay. And he swims away. And like most Godzilla movies, once he's in the water swimming away, it's over.
Post-credit scene. You remember?
Well, they say, he's like, oh, I owe you dinner. She's like, no, it was a draw, so I'll buy you dinner. Ha ha ha. Credits.
Then what happened after the credits?
What was the end of credits on this one? This one is escaping me. I saw it, but I'm trying to remember.
It is the weakest one ever. That's why, like, we talked a little bit about it last week, but this one was weak. It was just basically like one last salute for battling Godzilla, and that was it. There was no reveal, no coming next time. It was just like, good job, all right.
Out in the water. Goodbye.
It wasn't good at all.
No,
I didn't like the
weak. So that's the end. Godzilla goes back to the crevice in the sea. They consider it a draw, and they're like, well, we can run them off. And that's good enough, apparently. So brings us to Godzilla. What is it? This one, this Tokyo SOS.
Well, what do you think? Do you think this iteration of Mechagodzilla held up pretty well? I mean,
I like this iteration of Mechagodzilla. It had a different story to it, and I liked it more after Tokyo SOS. So.
Well, then we should get to Godzilla Tokyo SOS then.
So it's Godzilla Tokyo SOS is really Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2.
And that's awesome, because it's the only break in the series where they don't rewrite or retcon anything.
And you swap out a lot. They get rid of a lot of the actors, though, minus the Prime Minister and a couple of government guys are the same. The Prime Minister takes over in this one from the last guy or woman. And basically Godzilla's been away for a while. They know they've got Kiryu.
And this is where you gotta mix up. Here's where the infant island twins, not the Cosmo twins.
Ah, yes.
They're in this one too.
And they're more prominent in this one.
Yeah, so basically, like, Kiryu's getting replaced. They got rid of Absolute Zero, and now they have, like, a Mega Maser weapon to replace it.
They put the Mega Maser in just because it's going to take, like, 6 years to redo the freezing weapon. So they're like, we'll put this in the interim, it'll be good enough. We can run them off, but we're going to have to fully repair Mechagodzilla or Kiryu. So they're working on him, hoping Godzilla doesn't come back.
Meanwhile, the twins are like, you take those bones and you go to the bottom of the sea.
They tell the mechanic that. They tell the mechanic and his uncle and his nephew.
Because the uncle was in, this is really cool touch, the uncle was in the jungle way back in the original Godzilla movie. I think in the Godzilla vs. Mothra movie.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're back. It's like, here's my family. Here's my grandson. And they're like, well, okay, that's great, but, if you don't return Godzilla's bones to the sea, Godzilla would keep coming back, and that means that Mothra would declare war on humanity. But if you take those bones to the sea, Mothra will be your protector from here on out. So it was totally ultimatum time from the twins.
They're like, well, if you get the bones back in the sea and then Godzilla does attack, Mothra will run them off. But then it was kind of like, earlier on, it was kind of like, well, if you make an effort to put them in the sea, Mothra will still help you. Because Mothra is kind of like God. Apparently, it knows intention. But
God is, Mothra can be a vengeful Mothra, but I think in terms of, like, on the good guy scale, Mothra is, like, the number one good.
Mothra's like, listen, you got to make it right, or try to make it right, or I'm not going to help. I'll hurt.
Yeah, it's pretty much everybody else is behind Mothra in terms of monster morality, and the highest of the best good monster that there is Mothra. So.
And it turns out that the twins talked to the old guy from the first, like the earlier movies, and his grandson, and like his two grandsons basically. And the one older kid is, well, he's like a college kid. He's an airman, and he's like a mechanic on Kiryu. He's not good enough to quite be a pilot, but he's a super mechanic.
It's the Godzilla movie universe way of class warfare, is what I think it was.
And the pilots give him shit all the time.
Yeah, you're just a lowly mechanic. I'm the super pilot. I'm the mechanic, and I matter, and I'm gonna fight because I'm the underdog, and blah 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 blah.
Which that also comes up later too.
Yeah, it does. And it's just like, oh.
I just thought of that now, but that comes up somewhere else too. So the mechanic guy is like, oh, he's kind of torn because he's like, well, he's our only defense against Mecha's the only defense against Godzilla. Is it really that big a deal? Mothra anyway. The government people like Mothra attacked our city a long time ago, referencing the Mothra movie, I think. It's like, how can we trust Mothra? Meanwhile, the old guy's got a little chip of like ivory with Mothra symbol on it. And it turns out, like back in the day, he painted that symbol on a runway to signal Mothra to come help.
Yeah, which, boy, if that secret ever got out, man, Mothra would be one busy moth.
Maybe he'll paint that thing on every street.
That'll play into later. Thanks, grandson.
Yeah, good job, genius. So they basically, Godzilla's coming towards...
Well, they find a giant Mata turtle dead. They call it Camebus, which I don't even know what that is. But
I thought that might have been a shot at the Gamera movies.
Which, a little aside, I'll wait till next one.
Yeah, I thought maybe the giant dead turtle was kind of like, yeah, you want to rip off our idea? Look what happened to the giant turtle in this movie. It's dead.
Yep, although I did not see fangs in its jaws, so...
I saw the back. I didn't think they really showed you too much, so... He killed Gamera. There you go. But he had big claws. Turtle's dead.
So Godzilla, like, heads towards somewhere and shows up
out there because big things are coming up dead.
Yeah. So Godzilla and Mothra show up, and they start fighting. And Kiru shows up, too, to kind of get into the fray.
First, they let Mothra and Godzilla duke it out for a bit. Mothra is throwing out the little stinger pieces. And I know this is the one where they're like, somebody pays attention, like, oh, no, Mothra's fighting with her...
scales.
With her scales, which means she's going to die. And they're like, well, Mothra always dies, so big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, judges... And
allow it, because there's going to be a Mothra egg. Oh, there's a Mothra egg.
Well, at the same time, another Mothra egg hatches, and it's twin Mothras, which is cool.
Which happened before.
Yeah. So they head out to help.
The slow ocean over to Japan. Because they're just larvae, they can't swim as fast. They don't fly, so... So
it inevitably sets up the scene where Mothra sacrifices herself to... save the two larvae?
Larvae.
Yeah, did I say larvae? Wow.
Larvae. That's different. Larvae. Larvae.
I tell you, that's one of the best monster death scenes I've seen. Was Mothra going up in flames like that. That was really cool.
Just gets tagged by the breath and toast. And saves the little web-spinning Mothra larvae.
Yeah, and that's just enough time for the mechanic to repair the Kiru.
Get Kiru up and going again. Partially falling apart, but running.
Oh, man, this is the scene where the goofy mechanic guy hops on the bike and bikes through the... motorbikes through the subway, right?
He goes down the subway and motorbikes over, and then the twins lead him through a secret door, and he pops up right by the Mechagodzilla, and he has to find the service hatch, but the one he wants to go in is kind of jacked up from the fight, so he goes in the service hatch 3, but then he gets it fixed, but he doesn't have time to get out, and so they're flying all over the God's green earth, and Mechagodzilla fighting with Godzilla. He's in there bouncing around like a boiled egg. And so it's a lot of like, whoa, 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 and the room's turning, and it's a big long tube. And so he's in there doing crap, and what turns the tide to where Mechagodzilla kind of comes back to life, like the bones start doing the right thing?
The Godzilla roar, because the drill injured Godzilla so much that it was a really big roar, and it was just big enough.
That it broke through all the programming, and it triggered the Mechagodzilla to know that it was going to take them both into the sea.
So it was also helped out by the two Mothra larvae because they spun like webs on Godzilla to make it into like a candy cane looking killer clowns from outer space kind of
I like that movie.
Kind of like cotton candy ball human.
He's weak and he's wrapped up in a big thing of web. And so now sentient Godzilla bones or whatever is flying itself. They can't control it. They think the mechanics controlling it. He's like, I'm not doing it. And it's basically time to get the bones and Godzilla back to the sea. And
did the guy jump out of Mechagodzilla though?
No, Mechagodzilla helped him get out. It knew he was doing the right thing because it kind of cries. The little red light goes down its face, so Mechagodzilla kind of cries. And
yeah, judges. I don't know if I'd allow that actually.
Yeah, so the guy's trapped in there, and they're like, you got to crawl out before it goes in the ocean because you're gonna die. And he can't because it's the gravity thing's just too much. He's way down the bottom. And then all of a sudden it's like Mechagodzilla rotating, and it turns upside down, and it opens the hatch, and he basically falls out. And at the same time, the ship captain, Superjet, who usually gives him shit, is like
flies and catches him, right?
He doesn't just catch him; he's flying underneath. He's kind of doing a Luke Skywalker. Oh, Star Wars reference. Empire Strikes Back when he's hanging underneath Cloud City.
Oh yeah.
Falcon comes up and picks him up. He's hanging there, and then the twins are like, just let go, you'll be fine. And so he does, and then the guy flies the jet underneath him, and he ejects out of the jet and catches him as he's falling, and they both parachute down.
Okay. Yeah, that was a little bit much.
They let the jet crash, and he ejects out and catches him. So as he's flying through midair, he ejects just the right time to catch him, and they both float down to the ocean or sitting in a raft. And meanwhile, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla fall into the ocean.
Yeah, they're probably in like what, the Tokyo Trench or something.
The Tokyo Trench, and Mechagodzilla just steers it enough so that they're going to fall 1,000 meters, millions of meters down in the ocean, and forever be trapped. And they track Godzilla, and they're like tracking, lost. And so Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are in the trench. The bones have been returned to the sea. Mothra's happy and will defend the people whenever they need her to. And meanwhile, the pilot and the mechanic are in a raft, and they're like, I saved your ass. No, you didn't. Blah, blah, blah. Ball busting. Yeah. Let's salute the water where Mechagodzilla went down.
And there was post-credit scenes in this one, too.
And this one, which I like, this was actually kind of a decent post-credit scene. You see a lab, and you see this thing that says 1954, and it says DNA sample, and apparently they kept a DNA sample of Godzilla in file in the storage facility. And
it was other monsters too, right?
There's a whole room full of this DNA sampling thing, and they just shut the doors, and you see it's in a big storage facility. So that means you can make more Godzillas.
Yeah, it was cool.
And that was the end of that one. That was a good one. I liked that one quite a bit, actually.
I liked it too. It put closure on the last movie, so that was really good.
I liked a little continuity. I did enjoy the continuity of not jumping from a new thing.
And Mothra showing up again was pretty cool.
Yeah, this Mothra was pretty good. These Mothrai, whatever. Mothrai. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm all set. Final Wars, I get a good feel for this style.
Yeah, and now we get into the wonder that is Godzilla Final Wars.
And I was so ready for like another thing kind of like these two mecha ones. And I did not get that.
It was absolutely batshit insane.
I don't know that it was good, but you had no idea where the hell it was going.
So basically, it's 2004.
Go ahead and take a shot at this. I don't even know how to recap this one entirely.
Okay, we'll start.
American rock music in it. There's an American. Well, he's an American, but he's playing.
They rip off the Matrix first of all.
Matrix ripoff. One of their captain heroes looks like Joseph Stalin. He's Russian. I have to note, watching this, I had the subtitles, but the American actors or the non-Japanese actors, when they spoke Japanese, it was not subtitled.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a little hard to understand, but you got the
hilarious watching them speak Japanese because they weren't speaking Japanese.
well,
but it was Japanese.
What they were actually saying wasn't that special.
No,
No one cares about the dialogue in this one.
I was able to piece it together. You know.
Yeah, it didn't take.
This one was not super deep.
Yeah. So basically,
a 2-hour music video
with the Matrix involved.
With a just total Matrix ripoff, and a lot of trench coats and flipping around, and a lot of it's the same. It's probably, this is going to make it sound dumb. It needed to get to the monster fighting a little bit faster.
You know what though? There was so much monster fighting though.
They gave monster fighting like a whole hour almost, so I can't complain. Maybe just trim the other part down. It was a 2-hour movie, which is unusual for any of these Godzilla movies.
But it was 2-hour send-off to Godzilla.
It was a final send-off to Godzilla, which was fine. It was nuts. So there's nothing wrong with it because you're just like, what the hell are you doing? Okay.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. Okay. So this Russian guy who leads the ship, it's like pollution's bad. It's a dystopian world. There's mutants that have evolved for humans that can do some crazy stuff, and then on top of that, there's a flying drill ship called the Gotengo that's piloted by this Russian dude. And you start out with the movie with that ship, like, shooting Godzilla at the South Pole, and Godzilla falls through ice and is frozen, and Godzilla's stuck in ice in the South Pole.
I would notice the commander of that ship was the Prime Minister in the last 2 movies. And his second in command was his assistant Prime Minister in the last 2 movies. So they got him some roles in there.
Oh, dude, there's cameos all over.
I was going to say the older leader, the older woman who was later was in one of the Godzilla movies.
Yep.
I think almost everybody who was in this movie had been in another Godzilla movie somewhere.
Yeah, like the twins show up too, as a matter of fact.
Twins are in this movie. This movie does reference every possible trope from Godzilla.
Yeah, how does that happen? Well, it's 40 years after Godzilla falls through ice.
Yep.
And
little dome over him, keep an eye on him.
Yeah, and the fairies that there's other fairies that Mothra fairies, the other twins. They say that Gigan's coming back, which is awesome.
Well, they've got this one they have this kind of fossilized monster, and they think, oh, this is a fossil, it's dead. And if you've seen the movie, you're kind of like, oh, that's Gigan, he's got rock all over him. But you can tell.
Yeah.
And the twins are like, it's coming, you guys are screwed.
And then cut to all these monsters showing up across the world, a la Destroy All Monsters.
And it's
Geras in Shanghai, Rodan in New York, King Caesar in Okinawa.
That was I like that King Caesar. He was just wild looking.
Kamacuras in Paris, Kumonga, who was in earlier in the movie, where Gotengo kind of fought off on its way for Godzilla.
Now, there's Kumonga, and what's the spider's name? Is that Kumonga?
I think it's a Bira.
Now, Bira is the Horror of the Deep.
I don't know what the monster is.
Give me a second, I will tell you.
But Zilla was in Sydney, or the 98 Godzilla.
Kumonga is the spider, and Camaricus is the giant grasshopper.
Yeah, and the Camaricus was in that.
Yeah.
I don't think they called. They called.
Oh no, I think they. No, wait. Is Kumonga is the spider? Manda is the giant. Is Manda the giant praying mantis? So.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There's a giant praying mantis that was in the other.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's a giant bug. It's like the bug in called Gigantus in. Either Son of God, probably Son of God.
It's like Gigantus, but they have different names. Anyways, the giant praying mantis, there's the spider. Rodan got New York, which was I loved watching the American depictions. That's really, they got a pimp and not have an argument.
Was Ibira the crab monster?
Abir is the horror of the deep, the crab, the giant lobster.
Yeah, because the mutants take out that giant monster.
Yeah. There's the giant monster. Later on, you get Hedorah, the smog monster, which Hedorah got like a barely mention in this one. But I was like, all right, Hedorah. But anyway, and what monster was in Sydney?
Zilla.
Which monster was that?
It was the 98 Godzilla one.
98 abomination that is Godzilla running around. And I might add that Godzilla made very short order of him later.
Yeah, so basically all these monsters show up, and then they disappear.
They just boom.
Aliens called Zillions from Planet X come and they're like, we can help you.
We got all your monsters. We made them all go away, and we're here to help. And I'm like, I've seen this before. And they kept their same lame, little skinny 80s punk glasses, which were awesome.
Yeah, so
As
basically,
soon as I saw the glasses, I was like, oh, they're Planet X people. They're going to screw you over. Of course, they didn't know this. So.
Yeah, so basically, they are out to dupe the human race to take it over because they want the mitochondria for some reason.
Apparently, they need something out of the people to harvest and while they're alive, and they have all the monsters, and they're just going to release them and destroy the Earth when they're ready. And one guy's like trying to put on a good face and be nice about it, and then there's this young upstart Matrix bad guy who just wants to kill all the people.
Well, the clone guy, they realize that these aliens never blink, and you can tell that the human is one of those aliens because they never blink, and they find out that the prime minister, who they thought died in a plane crash while this was all going on, once thought was rescued by the aliens, actually is an alien, and they did some ridiculous duping with like a puppy and a dog and names and stuff like that.
The reporter kind of figures out it's not him and kind of pulls his wool over his eyes a little bit.
And that's when the upstart just gets impatient and shoots his predecessor, and then just unleashes hell again in the form of monsters across the world.
It's in his giant like space ball, and he's flying around. He's like, all right, let them all loose, and he just starts dropping them out there, and they're destroying the world. He's putting on eyeshadow and swishing around his cape in his trench.
Meanwhile, an old dude and a kid find Manila at Mount Fuji, or Baby Godzilla.
However, which way you want to go with that one. And it's not the kind of dinosaur Baby Godzilla. This is the kind of goofier looking one. This like more Muppet.
Which I liked too, right? Because it was good. It was good comedy in between all this stuff.
Because there's like he's just pissing himself all the time because he's scared of the kid and his grandpa.
He's just chilling out in the backseat of a pickup truck, just.
Yeah, like they put him in the back of the pickup truck after he knows they're not going to kill him, and he's like, "Yay, I'm in the truck, yay!"
But it's funny, and it's a stroke of genius too, because they really did touch upon the whole history of Godzilla, the 50 years of history. They did touch upon all of it. And it was a really nice touch having Manila in there because he really was as goofy as he was back then. And as much as I hated it back then, it was kind of refreshing now. And I also appreciated that he ended up being an integral part to this whole.
He wasn't as creepy looking as the old Manila.
Yeah. Oh.
It was kind of creepy. And if you watch the dub version of the old Manila, he kind of sounds like the dog from Davy and Goliath.
I don't know, Davy.
I don't know, Hiroshi. Look at him fight. Look at Godzilla fight.
So basically, these aliens take over. There's not much of a defense force left over, except somehow like the good guy mutant and like.
They call him Japanese Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, and then like the Russian dude, the Ultimate Fighter guy.
Zangief.
Find him. Yeah, they find Zangief, and they find the secret like bay that has Gotenga in it, and they take on that, and they're like a suicide mission where they decide that the only thing that they can do is wake up Godzilla and then have Godzilla beat all these monsters up.
They're going to, they'll wake him up, he'll chase them, and they'll just drive to wherever the monsters are. and he'll follow them. And as they show up where the monster is, Godzilla will fight the monster for him. And then afterward, they'll have to figure out how to get Godzilla back in the ice.
Yeah. So basically, they're just like Godzilla's a mercenary in this one.
And then he's like the Rambo they get out of prison to like, fight the secret war against the Afghanis.
Bring your war, you never dream.
We need your services, John. I mean, Godzilla. And
it would have been awesome to see Godzilla tie a red headband around its head for this fight.
With this movie, they might as well have. Because they were going all over the place. They had like there's music I recognized in this movie. It was an American band.
The trailer shows it. Also in the credits. Fucking Sum 41.
41?
Yeah.
I didn't say I liked it. I just recognized it.
Yep. Yeah, so that was kind of like the thing I didn't like about it.
Yeah, and it seemed like they always had some kind of little borderline techno Sum 41 music in the background all the time.
So that said, it was really cool in the motorcycle fight scene between the guys, right?
Matrix fight scene out on the highway.
Yeah, these guys were kicking each other on the same motorbike as I was going down the highway. And this guy was skating on the ground with his rubber boots while the other guy was driving a bike and trying to cause trouble and stuff. It was crazy. And they explain it away by saying that only a certain sect of the mutants had this kind of gene or like chemical that the aliens used to take over people, whereas like another set didn't. So it's like the ones who didn't were the good guys, and the bad guys had all the naughty like
all the super mutant soldiers like ready to fight the aliens, and the aliens like shot them with a mind ray and took over their control of them because they had the wrong gene.
Yeah, so that they explained that away. So it gave a good reason to have a couple Matrix fights in there, which, let's take a moment and look back on the history of Godzilla and all the human interest stories. I mean, which one of those were really that memorable anyway? Like,
this one just balls to the walls nuts, so.
This one I appreciated because they're like, listen, we got nothing. We can have some lady in despair, some old guy getting redemption, some kid,
like an investigative reporter,
some kid who's just trying to get by, or some broke-ass love story. It's like, nah, let's not even waste our time with that.
Let's go Matrix.
Have, like Matrix ninjas.
We'll go Matrix, and we'll make the Planet X guy also Matrixy.
Yeah, I appreciated that a lot more than, say, a kid living in a junkyard who dreams about Godzilla, and that's the movie.
I don't know if that's a fair comparison.
Oh, Judges?
I'm not going to allow it.
No! Dang it!
That movie's a different. That's like one of the few in the series of like 28, 29 movies that you're just like, I don't know about that. That was bank robbers. That was a Saturday morning, buttercream gang active thing.
But
that's the one I aforementioned where Manila talks like this. Oh, look at Godzilla fighting. I hope I can fight like that one day. Well, you sound like a grown man, so I hope you can.
Sounds like your balls dropped already, Manila. Let's get out there fighting.
Oh, I can just shoot smoke rings.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I brought that up because that's one of the things I loved about this movie was they're like, the hell with it. Let's have some ninjas and stuff in there,
Yeah, throw it in there. We got the Planet X people. Let's go ahead and make them real, like, martial art heavy. So.
Yeah. So basically, it all ends up being where there's this crazy mission. Gotunga flies off, Godzilla follows, and then what you get is unbridled violence, kaiju style.
Some of these movies are really short, though.
That's what made it so awesome. It wasn't like a struggle or anything.
It's Godzilla taking names and kicking ass.
It was the rogue gallery of Godzilla monsters. I mean, we talked about Hedorah, Ibra, the sea monster, Zilla from the '98 movie, but you had Kumanga, you had that spider we talked about, you had Rodan. Was Rodan in this?
Yeah, Rodan was attacking New York.
Yeah, Rodan, Gigan Part 2, which we'll get to. All this crazy stuff, and Godzilla's just like, lining them up and knocking them down. It was awesome just watching him just lay waste to all these different monsters.
And it's kind of like, I've already fought you, you're done. Like, toasts them, knocks them around. One point he gets, they're like, oh yeah, we'll fight 3 of them at once. So he has to fight King Caesar. I think he's fighting King Caesar, Rodan, and
Anguillus.
And he basically was talking about like stacking.
Oh, this movie had the best use of Anguillus ever. I was so impressed with it.
Spiked ball Anguillus.
They didn't do that before, but it made so much sense where he rolled up like an armadillo and he just bounced around with his spikes and just hit people like a pinball.
Except he'd go after Godzilla, like they all converge on Godzilla, and he just ducks. And
yeah.
Hit each other, and then they do like King Caesar comes in and does like a full tilt like bicycle soccer kick.
Yeah.
And Anguillus right at Godzilla, but he ducks and hits Rodan, and then it bounces back and hits King Caesar in the face, and he basically like stacks all 3 of them in a pile and is like, "You're done."
So, and I've not that I read this anywhere else, but it also kind of helped point it out that this was like the good Godzilla.
He just whooping ass.
Well, not only that, but those were his friends. Like, if you think about it, right?
He didn't kill them. He just knocked them out and left them piled up.
Yes, exactly. So that's the thing. This nice little touch. This movie was definitely a 50-year anniversary. This one's for the fans' send-off because they're just like
the bad monsters he kills.
The good ones, he just like boom, you're out for the count, and they're like, I'm ready to go.
Because then he crosses into town and they like beam down Hedorah in like a last gasp try, and there's Hedorah and
Sea Monster.
Yeah, and the Sea Monster.
And he just radioactive breasts them to Red Lobster, pretty much.
He just like sees them, he's like, oh hey, those guys, and he just shoots his breath, blows them through half of a city, and they're done. The end.
Kind of like what they did with Zilla, right?
Oh yeah, Zilla. Oh please. So he goes to Sydney. Here's Zilla running around. Zilla runs at him, makes a run. He just like smacks with his tail into I think the opera house, and he just toasts it, and that's it. And then even the alien's like, you stupid tuna eating monster. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's a stupid.
I mean, this one was solely for the fans. That's why
I like Godzilla, and so he kills Zilla really quickly.
So we failed to mention the aliens were like rescued the Earth falsely from all these monsters. We're also warning them of an asteroid that would hit Earth and blow it out. But the scientists did work, and they're like, nah, these guys are full of crap.
They photoshopped the asteroid.
It was still a meteorite, and they called it Agora. And on the way to where the mothership was, Gora landed. And what came out of that?
When Gora's flying down, the meteorite's coming into Earth. Godzilla tries to hit it with his breath. It still hits him, but he's just like standing there like, okay, that didn't kill me. He cracks open, and there's this monster in there who I thought looked like Destroya.
I lend it more toward looked like Samus Aran from the Metroid series of video games.
I'm just gonna say he was another big monster, and he was supposed to kind of be like this end-all be-all monster. And I was like, well, is it Destroya? Because that was the one that actually killed him before.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, they're dusting off Destroya, and so they're bringing him out. And I think it was because that'd be the only way to get him in. And so he's in there, and he's fighting Destroya.
We failed to mention also that Godzilla wiped out Gigan earlier.
Oh, yeah, he made short work of Gigan. And then you think, okay, Gigan's done, and he's fighting this Destroyer thing, and then they dust off. The aliens pop out a whole new Gigan.
Yeah, upgraded Gigan with, instead of hooks,
chainsaw.
Double trident, double like 2 pairs of
chainsaw.
It was like a chainsaw thing. It was crazy.
And so he looks pretty badass. But then here comes Mothra.
Mothra to save it, because Mothra really is like the end-all, be-all good monster.
So Mothra's coming in to help, and Mothra kind of gets his ass kicked again, shockingly. Because New Gigan just starts cutting wings off and hooking in, like he has a hook on his tail, and he just kind of hooks into him. But then Mothra's back up and going, and Gigan's going to fry Mothra, but Mothra starts putting out the gold dust, which I guess is its scales. And when he shoots like he shoots out like little like discs, like razor discs, and knocks him back at Gigan and just cuts his head off.
Well, no, the blades that come out come back and hit him.
Yeah, so he fires some blades at Mothra. Mothra they bounce back and hit him and cut his head off.
It was kamikaze style, so like they're both dead.
They're both dead because Mothra kind of flies at him into flames and blows him up, and everybody's dead.
Now, meanwhile, on the ship, the good mutant and the bad mutant fight each other, and it's like crazy fights. And then like the Russians guy there, the Katenga ship with the drill, like hits the ship and drills inside. Not unlike the droid ships in Clone Wars. Damn it! Another Clone Wars reference.
Yeah, they drill in there. They find that the Prime Minister and the other leaders, the good ones, are still alive, the non-planet Exians, and they get them, and they all head to the drill ship.
Yeah, so that all happens. Meanwhile, it's Godzilla and Monster X, or what we find out.
It could be Destroyer, it could be whatever it is. It's a monster, a big monster, and he's sitting there whomping on. He's like got him on the ground, just pummeling him. Ultimate punching from WWF games. He's ultimate punching him. And
so who does it end up being?
Well, he think okay, he's got him, and then all of a sudden it starts like mutating, like its head split up and does this, and all of a sudden you see 3 heads, and you're like, oh, I know where this is going. Because the one monster who hasn't been absent from this whole film, every other Godzilla thing has been referenced except for one noticeable absence, and it starts turning into this super ultra like mega King Ghidorah.
Yeah, although in this movie they call it Kaiser Ghidorah.
Kaiser Ghidorah, because the alien is apparently from the family Kaiser, and so is the human mutant, the Keanu Reeves guy. They're all Kaisers, and so this Ghidorah is also a Kaiser. But it's very recognizable that it's Ghidorah, and they're like, oh crap. And I was mistaken. I was watching this. I thought when baby Godzilla grew up, I thought he was going to grow into like another Godzilla and come help his father.
No,
he just grew into like the taller, still Muppet-like baby Godzilla. So
what did Manila have to do? Manila had something to do with like turning.
He turned at the end. But Godzilla takes care of kicking ass first. So he's fighting King Ghidorah, and these bite onto Godzilla, and they suck all his atomic energy out. And so Matrix hero guy can channel his energy in some fashion. And
they gave it to Godzilla.
And he shoots it right into Godzilla's spine, and he gets all jazzed up. And then he starts laying to hurt on Ghidorah. Melts one head off, tears off another. Then he does the tail flip back and forth, which is from the old movies, which is great.
Yeah.
Womp the shit out of Ghidorah, just back and forth, whomping him. So he kills him. So Ghidorah's dying. He's pretty much dead. Godzilla at one point blasts the ship while he's fighting Ghidorah. He's like, I know this game, and he looks up at the ship and gives it a good blast.
Yeah.
And then the drill ship's out, and he starts turning his attention to that because it's time to mess them up.
But
here comes the Jeep with baby Godzilla.
Yeah, baby Godzilla is bigger, and baby Godzilla flags on Godzilla. It's like no.
Same time, a Daniel Boone Japanese guy with the bear skin on his head he's got a rifle that he apparently thinks he can take down Godzilla with, and he's pointing a gun at Godzilla, and his grandson runs and waves his arms like no, don't shoot Godzilla, he's good. Godzilla Jr. or whatever, Manila pops up, and he's like, no, don't kill or nuke the humans, they're fine. And Godzilla relents.
It's like, okay, so we get the C finish.
And we get like a final C finish, and Godzilla and Manila wander off. The kid's like, where are you going, Manila? And then he spits out a big atomic ray, and he's like, see, I'm one of him. Kind of waves goodbye to him, and then he goes off with his dad into the ocean, and they go off into the sunset.
The end. C finish. Also, in the credits, we see Mothra flying back to Infinite Island as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so that is Godzilla Final Wars. It is a crazy, crazy movie.
It's nuts. It is nuts.
So, yeah, that's it. That's the last before the Godzilla movie in the theater.
Yes, indeed.
We of course will be watching that. We have one more episode left to go. It's gonna be spoiler filled. We'll give you plenty of warning. But we are wrapped up. It's all the two-rent movies from '54 to 2004. But first, Tim, how would you rate these four?
Let's see. I really like Godzilla Tokyo SOS. Then, I should go backwards.
Yeah, I'll go backwards too.
I don't think I cared for GMK all that much. It was all right. I didn't dislike it, but out of these four, it's number 4. Then Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, then Final Wars, then Tokyo SOS.
Interesting, because mine is in chronological order.
Yeah.
I like GMK the least. Against Mechagodzilla was all right. SOS was better than that. It also provided closure to the story, but Final Wars was so crazy and insane that it was such a break from the formula that, and like even if you compared it to its next closest movie, which would be Destroy All Monsters, I mean the human interest in that kind of stunk too. So like Final Wars was number 1 for me, and it was a good send-off to Godzilla. They kind of rectified and made Godzilla a good person, which hopefully will play out in the movie theater version, but we'll find out about that.
We'll have to see what comes of the new one.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the final movie rental version of Go Go Godzilla. We have the movie coming up. It's going to be very special. We are going to talk about it. It's going to be spoiler filled. We might talk about stuff around it too, reactions, stuff like that. So it's going to be a special edition.
We've made it through 29 movies.
Yeah, what's another one really?
Yeah, so this is the newest that we'll be getting to next, and we'll warn you, but it's mainly going to be us talking about the movie. So
yeah. Now in the meantime, GonzoGuys.com, Facebook.com/GonzoGuys, @GonzoGuys on Twitter,
iTunes, Podbean, go get them.
GonzoGuys at Adult Friend Finder. What?
I don't know. You might get something else there, but go for it.
Yes, it most certainly is Gonzo.
It's most certainly Gonzo. So there you go. There's all kinds of stuff. Just go check it out. A whole catalog of doses and Godzilla things, prizes to be won, and things of that nature.
Yes. So until then, it's off to the movie theater for us.
Save me an aisle seat, or whatever they used to say.
Yep. And we'll see you next time.
Next time.